The stagecoach rattled to a stop in front of the general store in Skidoo, California, and Olivia Dalton stepped down onto dusty ground with nothing but a worn carpet bag and bruises hidden beneath her faded calico dress. She had escaped her uncle's house in Sacramento 3 days ago, fleeing the man who believed a 22-year-old orphan owed him servitude and worse for the roof over her head. And now, she stood in this rough mining town perched in the Panamint Mountains with exactly $4 to her name and nowhere to sleep. The year was 1878, and Skidoo was barely more than a collection of tents and hastily built structures clinging to the mountainside, populated by men seeking gold and fortune in the unforgiving landscape. Olivia had never owned anything beautiful in her entire life. Her clothes were hand-me-downs or cheaply made. Her shoes had holes she stuffed with newspaper, and the only mirror she had ever looked into was a cracked piece of glass that showed her pale, thin face in fragmented pieces. She had grown up believing she was unremarkable, forgettable, the kind of woman men looked past rather than at, and her uncle had reinforced that belief every day with his cruel words and crueler hands. She walked into the general store, the bell above the door announcing her arrival. The proprietor, a heavy-set man with suspicious eyes, looked her up and down. "Help you? I am looking for work," Olivia said, keeping her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "Any kind of work. I can cook, clean, mend clothes, keep accounts." The man grunted. "Ain't got nothing here." "You might try the boarding house down the street, though I heard Mrs. Patterson already has help. Most work in Skidoo is mining, and that ain't for women." Olivia thanked him and left, her heart sinking. She walked the single main street, asking at every establishment, but received the same answer everywhere. By the time the sun began its descent toward the western mountains, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain, she was hungry, exhausted, and fighting back tears. She found herself at the edge of town, where the buildings gave way to scattered pines and the mountain rose steeply. A small creek bubbled nearby, and she knelt beside it to drink and wash her face. The water was cold and clear, tasting of stone and snowmelt from higher elevations. "You lost." Olivia gasped and spun around, losing her balance and falling backward into the shallow water. A man stood a few yards away, and her first impression was simply that he was enormous. He stood well over 6 feet tall, with shoulders so broad they seemed to block out the setting sun behind him. His hair was dark brown and fell past his shoulders, tied back with a leather cord, and his face was weathered and tan beneath a thick beard. He wore buckskin pants and a simple cotton shirt that strained across a chest and arms corded with muscle. A rifle rested easily in one hand, and a pack was slung over his shoulder. "I am sorry," Olivia stammered, struggling to stand in the creek. Her dress was soaked, clinging to her thin frame, and she shivered as the cold water and the evening air combined. The man moved forward with surprising grace for his size and offered his free hand. Olivia hesitated, then took it. His hand was rough, calloused, and warm, completely engulfing hers, and he lifted her from the creek as easily as if she weighed nothing at all. "Did not mean to startle you," he said, his voice a deep rumble. "Name is Vance Summers. I got a cabin up the mountain. Saw you in town earlier asking for work." "Olivia Dalton," she said, wrapping her arms around herself as another shiver ran through her. "I was just leaving." "Leaving to go where? Sun is setting and there ain't nothing but wilderness in any direction except back into town." His dark eyes studied her face. "You got somewhere to sleep tonight?" Olivia opened her mouth to lie, but something about his direct gaze made the words die on her lips. She shook her head. Vance was quiet for a long moment. "I got a proposition for you then. I've been living up in these mountains for 5 years now, trapping and hunting. Make a good living selling pelts and meat to the mining camps, but I ain't got time to keep my cabin proper or cook decent meals. If you want work, I will pay you fair wages for keeping house. You would have your own room, all the food you need, and safety. I ain't the kind of man who hurts women if that is what you are worried about." Olivia stared at him, trying to read deception in his face and finding none. Everything about him seemed straightforward, honest, from his steady gaze to his calm stance, but she had trusted before and been betrayed. "Why would you help me? You do not know me at all." "Don't need to know you to see you are in trouble," Vance said simply. "And I genuinely do need help. Cabin is getting to be a mess, and I am tired of my own cooking. You would be doing me a service, not the other way around. But I understand if you do not trust me. You can sleep in the stable at the boarding house tonight and think on it. I will be in town tomorrow afternoon for supplies. You can give me your answer then." He reached into his pocket and pulled out $2 silver, pressing them into her hand before she could protest. "For the stable and a meal. Consider it an advance on wages if you decide to take the job." Before Olivia could respond, he touched the brim of his worn hat and walked past her, heading into town with long, easy strides. She stood there dripping creek water, staring at the coins in her palm, feeling more confused than she had all day. That night, she did sleep in the stable, after paying the boarding house owner 50 cents for the privilege and another 50 for a plate of stew and bread. She lay in the hay, wrapped in a thin blanket the stable owner had provided, and thought about Vance Summers. Everything about the situation felt dangerous. Going to live in a remote cabin with a strange man went against every warning she had ever heard. But staying in Skidoo with no money and no prospects felt equally dangerous. At least Vance had looked her in the eye when he spoke. At least he had offered fair wages, and had not let his gaze travel across her body with that hungry look she had come to recognize and fear. She fell asleep with the question unanswered, and woke to pale dawn light filtering through the cracks in the stable walls. After washing as best she could at the public pump and spending another precious 50 cents on breakfast, she walked through Skidoo, making one more round of inquiries about work. The answer was the same everywhere. There was nothing. By afternoon, Olivia found herself back at the general store, standing near the window, watching the street. She told herself she was just looking, just considering, but her heart knew she had already made her decision. When she saw Vance's tall form walking up the street, leading a sturdy mule, her breath caught in her chest. She walked outside before she could change her mind. Vance saw her and stopped, waiting as she approached. "I will take the job," Olivia said. "But I need your word as a gentleman that you will respect my privacy and my person." "You have it," Vance said without hesitation. "I will treat you with respect, and if you ever want to leave, I will bring you back to town myself, with full wages for any time you worked. Fair." "Fair," Olivia agreed, and just like that, her life changed direction. Vance finished his supply shopping, loading flour, sugar, coffee, and other provisions onto the mule. Then they began the walk up the mountain. The path was steep and rocky, winding through pines and granite outcroppings. Olivia's worn shoes slipped on loose stones, and more than once Vance's steady hand on her elbow kept her from falling. "How far is it?" she asked after they had been walking for over an hour. "Another hour or so. I built the cabin up high for a reason. Closer to the game, farther from the noise of the mines, and the water source is pure. It is a good spot." As they climbed higher, the air grew cooler and thinner. Olivia's legs burned with exertion, and her breath came in gasps. She was not used to such physical demands after months of being confined to her uncle's house, doing only indoor work. Vance seemed to notice her struggling and slowed his pace without comment. Finally, as the sun began its descent, They emerged into a small clearing on the mountainside. A solid log cabin stood against the granite slope, with a stone chimney rising from one end. A small barn was built nearby, along with a smokehouse and a well-maintained woodshed. A garden plot, still dormant in the early spring, occupied a flat area near the cabin. The view stretched for miles across the valley below, where Skidoo looked like a child's toy village, and mountains rose in purple and blue layers into the distance. "It is beautiful," Olivia whispered. Vance looked pleased. "Built most of it myself. Come on, I will show you inside." The cabin's interior was spacious for a mountain dwelling, with a main room that served as kitchen and living area. A stone fireplace dominating one wall, and two doors leading to separate bedrooms. The furniture was rough but well made, clearly built by hand. What struck Olivia most was how messy everything was. Dirty dishes were piled near a wash basin, clothes were draped over chairs, traps and tools covered the table, and the floor had not been swept in what looked like weeks. "I told you it was a mess," Vance said, actually looking a bit embarrassed. "Your room is through there. It is small, but it has a good bed and a door that latches from the inside." Olivia walked into the small room and found it clean compared to the rest of the cabin, as if Vance had prepared it for her. The bed was simple but sturdy, covered with what looked like a thick bear fur. A small table and a chair sat beneath a window that looked out over the valley. Pegs on the wall provided space to hang clothes. "It is more than I expected," Olivia said honestly. "Thank you. I will give you time to settle in. I need to tend the animals and put the supplies away. There is bread and dried meat in the cupboard if you are hungry." After Vance left, Olivia stood in the center of her small room and felt tears prick her eyes. It was not much, this rough cabin on a mountainside, but it was hers. She had a door that latched, a warm bed, and an employer who looked at her with respect rather than cruelty or lust. It felt like more than she deserved. She unpacked her meager belongings, hanging her 2 spare dresses on the pegs, and placed her brush and the small Bible that had been her mother's on the table. Then she ventured back into the main room and assessed the work ahead of her. It was daunting, but she had been cleaning and organizing since she was old enough to reach a counter. This was familiar work, comforting in its way. Olivia started with the dishes, heating water over the fire and scrubbing each plate and cup until it shone. Then she organized the traps and tools, hanging them on pegs near the door or storing them in a large wooden chest. She swept the floor, beating the dirt and dust out through the open door. By the time Vance returned, the main room looked transformed. "You work fast," he said, looking around with approval. "And thorough. I appreciate it." "It is what you are paying me for," Olivia said, but she felt a warm glow at the praise. "You want me to show you where everything is for cooking." "I got venison in the smokehouse, and plenty of beans and flour. Vegetable stores are low this time of year, but I have some potatoes and onions left." Olivia nodded, and Vance gave her a tour of his food storage, showing her the smokehouse with its hanging meat, the root cellar built into the hillside, and the pantry shelves in the cabin. She was impressed by how well supplied he was. That night, she cooked her first meal in the cabin, a simple stew with venison, potatoes, and onions, with fresh bread she made using a starter Vance kept in a crock. They ate at the now clean table, sitting across from each other. "This is the best meal I have had in months," Vance said after his second helping. "You are a fine cook." "My mother taught me before she died," Olivia said. "She said a woman who could cook well would never starve." "Smart woman. How long has she been gone?" 10 years. I was 12. My father died when I was 14. After that, I went to live with my uncle." Vance was quiet for a moment, then said, And that is why you ended up in Skidoo alone. It was not a question, but Olivia nodded anyway. She did not elaborate, and Vance did not press, for which she was grateful. Over the following days, Olivia settled into a routine. She woke early, started the fire, and made breakfast. After Vance left for his trap lines or hunting, she cleaned, mended his clothes, and prepared meals. The work was hard but satisfying, and for the first time in years, she felt useful rather than simply used. Vance was gone most days from dawn until late afternoon, returning with game or furs that he would skin and prepare. He was a quiet man, not given to long conversations, but he was always respectful and often kind. He brought her wildflowers once, saying he had seen them growing and thought she might like them. Olivia arranged them in a tin cup on the table and felt something warm bloom in her chest. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after she had arrived, Vance came back from town with a package wrapped in brown paper. He set it on the table in front of her. "What is this?" Olivia asked. "Open it and see." She carefully unwrapped the paper and gasped. Inside was a dress, made of soft blue cotton printed with tiny white flowers. It was simple but new, the fabric crisp and clean, the stitching perfect. Beneath it was a new pair of sturdy boots, sized for a woman. "I cannot accept this," Olivia said, even as her fingers stroked the fabric reverently. "It is too much. Your shoes have holes in them and your dresses are worn through. You need proper clothes for mountain living. It is practical, not charity." "But this is beautiful," Olivia whispered, holding the dress up. She had never owned anything so lovely, so new and perfect, and made just for wearing rather than for someone else's cast-off. Vance looked uncomfortable. "You are working hard. You deserve to have decent things." "There is no shame in that." Olivia felt tears threatening and blinked them back fiercely. "Thank you," she managed. "Truly, thank you." That night, she tried on the dress in her room and it fit perfectly. She looked at herself in the small mirror Vance had hung on her wall the week before. Another unexpected kindness, and barely recognized herself. The blue brought out the color in her gray eyes, and the fit of the dress showed that she was not as shapeless as her old clothes had made her appear. She had small curves, a narrow waist, and the beginnings of color in her cheeks from mountain sun and good food. She walked out into the main room, suddenly shy. Vance looked up from where he was cleaning his rifle and went very still. "Well," Olivia said, turning in a small circle. "Does it fit properly? You look beautiful," Vance said, his voice rough. Then he seemed to catch himself and cleared his throat. "I mean, it fits well. I am glad." Olivia felt her cheeks flush hot. No one had ever called her beautiful before. She did not know what to say, so she murmured her thanks again and retreated to her room, her heart beating fast. That night marked a subtle shift in their relationship. Vance seemed more aware of her presence, his eyes following her as she moved around the cabin. And Olivia found herself watching him too, noticing the way his muscles flexed as he worked, the rare smile that softened his bearded face, the gentleness in his large hands when he handled fragile things. Spring deepened into early summer. Vance helped Olivia plant a garden, turning the soil with powerful strokes of the shovel while she followed behind, planting seeds for beans, squash, tomatoes, and herbs. They worked side by side, and Olivia found herself laughing at Vance's dry observations about stubborn rocks and persistent weeds. "You have a nice laugh," Vance said one afternoon, pausing in his digging. "I do not hear it enough." Olivia ducked her head. "I have not had much to laugh about in recent years." "Maybe that is changing," Vance said quietly. Their eyes met and held, and Olivia felt something electric pass between them. Vance looked away first, returning to his work with perhaps more vigor than necessary. One night in early June, A fierce thunderstorm rolled over the mountains. Lightning cracked across the sky and thunder shook the cabin walls. Olivia lay in her bed, trying not to flinch at each boom when a particularly violent crack made her cry out. A moment later, there was a soft knock on her door. "Olivia, are you all right?" She got up and opened the door. Vance stood there in his nightshirt, his long hair loose around his shoulders, concern on his face. "I am fine," she said. "Just startled." Another tremendous crack of thunder made her jump, and without thinking she grabbed onto Vance's arm. He was solid and warm, and she felt his muscles tense under her grip. "It is just a storm," he said gently. "The cabin has weathered worse. You are safe here." "I know," Olivia said, but she did not let go. "I am being foolish." "Not foolish, just human." Vance hesitated, then said, "I can sit out in the main room until the storm passes, if that would help. Leave both our doors open so you know you are not alone." "Would you?" "I would feel better." Vance nodded and settled into one of the chairs near the fireplace, stoking the fire back to life. Olivia left her door open and lay back down, able to see his silhouette in the firelight. Somehow, his presence made everything less frightening. She fell asleep to the sound of rain on the roof and the occasional pop of the fire. When she woke in the morning, Vance was gone, already out checking his trap lines. But there was a wildflower on the table beside a fresh pot of coffee, and Olivia smiled. As the weeks passed, Olivia bloomed like the garden she tended. Good food, hard work, fresh air, and most importantly, kindness transformed her. The hollows in her cheeks filled out, her skin glowed with health, and her movements became less hesitant, more confident. She caught Vance watching her more and more often, and she no longer looked away when their eyes met. They began to talk more in the evenings, sharing stories of their pasts. Vance told her about growing up in Missouri, losing his family to cholera, and heading west to make a new start. He had tried mining first, he said, but found he preferred the solitude and honesty of hunting and trapping. Olivia told him about her childhood, her parents' death, and her uncle's cruelty, though she glossed over the worst of it. Vance listened with a dark expression, his jaw tight. "He hurt you," Vance said, "and it was not a question." "Yes," Olivia admitted. "That is why I left. If he ever comes looking for you, he will answer to me," Vance said, his voice hard as granite. Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. "Why do you care so much? I am just your housekeeper." Vance leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. "You stopped being just a housekeeper about a week after you got here. You know that, don't you?" Olivia's breath caught. "Then what am I?" "You are important to me," Vance said slowly, as if testing the words. "More important than I planned. I look forward to coming home now just to see you. I think about you when I am out in the woods. I want to bring you things that will make you smile. And when you look at me like you are looking at me right now, I want to do things that might not be proper." "What kind of things?" Olivia whispered. Vance stood up and moved around the table, coming to kneel beside her chair so their faces were level. "Things like touching your face, like finding out if your hair is as soft as it looks, like kissing you until you make that little sound you make when you are happy." Olivia's heart hammered in her chest. "I do not make a sound. You do. A little hum, almost like a song. You do it when you are cooking something that smells good, or when the garden is doing well, or when you find one of the flowers I leave for you. You notice all of that." "I notice everything about you, Olivia Dalton. I have been trying not to, trying to be respectful, but I am tired of pretending. I am falling in love with you. Maybe I have already fallen. I do not know when it happened, but it did." Olivia reached out with trembling fingers and touched his face, feeling the softness of his beard, the warmth of his skin. "I thought I was imagining it. The way you look at me, the little kindnesses. I thought it was wishful thinking because I have been falling in love with you too." Vance closed his eyes briefly, then opened them, and the heat in his gaze made Olivia's stomach flutter. "Can I kiss you?" "Yes," she breathed. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to change her mind, but she did not want to. When his lips met hers, it was gentle at first, almost reverent, as if he was afraid she might break. But Olivia leaned into the kiss, her hands moving to his broad shoulders, and Vance made a low sound in his throat and deepened the kiss. It was nothing like the stolen, unwanted kisses her uncle had forced on her. This was warmth and promise and desire freely given and received. Vance's arms came around her, pulling her close, and she felt surrounded by his strength, protected rather than trapped. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vance rested his forehead against hers. "I want to do this right," he said. "I want to court you proper. Will you let me?" "We live in the same cabin," Olivia said, a laugh bubbling up. "How are you going to court me?" "I will find a way," Vance promised. And he did. Over the following weeks, Vance courted Olivia with a determination and creativity that constantly surprised her. He brought her gifts from town, little things like hair ribbons and peppermint candies. He picked wildflowers every day, presenting them with a courtly bow that made her laugh. He took her on walks through the mountains, showing her hidden waterfalls and meadows full of wildflowers, always keeping a respectful distance even when she could see the desire in his eyes. One evening, Vance came home with his arms full of packages. "Get dressed in your nice dress," he said, his eyes sparkling. "We are going on a proper date. Where? We are miles from anywhere. You will see. Give me an hour." Mystified, Olivia put on her blue dress and brushed her hair until it shone, pinning it up the way her mother had taught her. When she emerged from her room, the cabin was transformed. Vance had cleaned everything, set the table with the good dishes he apparently owned but never used, and put candles everywhere. The smell of roasting meat filled the air. "Vance, did you do all this?" he grinned, looking boyish despite his size and beard. "I can be civilized when I want to be." "Sit down. Dinner is almost ready." He served her venison roasted with herbs, potatoes cooked in butter, greens from the garden, and biscuits so light they practically floated. For dessert, he had somehow acquired a small cake from the boarding house in town. "This is wonderful," Olivia said, tears threatening. "No one has ever done anything like this for me." "You deserve wonderful things," Vance said seriously. "You deserve to be treated like you are precious, because you are. To me, you are more valuable than all the gold in these mountains." After dinner, Vance cleared the table and then, to Olivia's shock, produced a fiddle. "You play?" she asked. "A little. My mother taught me." He drew the bow across the strings, filling the cabin with a sweet melody. "Dance with me." Olivia stood and moved into his arms. They swayed together in the candlelight, and Olivia felt like she was in a dream. How had her life gone from desperate and afraid to this, dancing in a mountain cabin with a man who looked at her like she hung the moon? "What are you thinking?" Vance asked softly. "That I am happy," Olivia said. "That I feel beautiful for the first time in my life, and it is because of you. The way you look at me, the way you treat me, it makes me feel like I matter." Vance stopped dancing and cupped her face in his large hands. "You do matter. You matter more than anything else in this world. And you are beautiful, Olivia. You were beautiful the day you stepped off that stage, all soaked and scared and trying to be brave. And you are beautiful now. The only difference is now you believe it." He kissed her then, and Olivia melted into him, feeling cherished and desired and completely safe. When the kiss ended, she rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady thunder of his heartbeat. "I love you, Vance Summers," she whispered. "I love you too, Olivia Dalton. And I have a question to ask you." Olivia looked up, her heart suddenly racing. Vance reached into his pocket and pulled out a small leather pouch. From it, he withdrew a ring, simple silver with a small blue stone. "This was my mother's," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "It is the only thing I have left of her. I want you to have it, if you will agree to marry me. I know it is fast, and I know I am just a mountain man without much to offer except this cabin and my love. But I swear to you, Olivia, I will spend every day of my life making you feel as beautiful and precious as you are. Will you marry me?" Olivia was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will marry you. And you are not just anything, Vance. You are everything to me." He slipped the ring on her finger and it fit perfectly. Then he picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing like children. They were married 3 weeks later in Skidoo, in front of the local judge with the boarding house owner and the general store proprietor as witnesses. Olivia wore a new dress Vance had commissioned from a seamstress, white cotton with lace at the collar and cuffs, and she carried a bouquet of wildflowers. Vance wore new clothes as well, black trousers and a white shirt, his long hair neatly tied back, his beard trimmed. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Vance kissed her with such tender passion that the witnesses clapped and whistled. Olivia blushed but did not care. She was married to the man she loved, the man who had shown her that she deserved kindness and beauty and love. They spent their wedding night in the cabin, and Vance was as gentle and reverent as Olivia had known he would be. He took his time, making her feel cherished and desired, and when they finally came together as husband and wife, Olivia wept with joy and relief that this was what it was supposed to be, this connection and pleasure and love. Afterward they lay tangled in Vance's large bed, Olivia's head on his broad chest, his fingers trailing through her hair. "I am the luckiest man alive," Vance said. "I still cannot believe you agreed to marry me." "I am the lucky one," Olivia countered. "You saved me, Vance." "In every way a person can be saved. We saved each other," Vance said. "I was just existing before you came. Now I am living." Summer passed into autumn and Olivia thrived as Vance's wife. She took pride in keeping their home, in cooking meals that made Vance groan with pleasure, in tending the garden and putting up preserves for winter. But more than that, she took joy in the little intimacies of married life, the morning kisses, the shared laughter, the nights wrapped in her husband's strong arms. Vance, for his part, seemed to find new reasons every day to tell Olivia she was beautiful. He said it when she first woke, her hair tangled and her face creased from the pillow. He said it when she was covered in garden dirt or flour from baking. He said it when she dressed up for their occasional trips to town, and when she wore her oldest clothes to clean. He made her believe it, down to her bones, that she was beautiful to him in every moment. In late October, Olivia realized she had not had her monthly courses in some time. She waited another week to be sure, then told Vance over dinner. "I think I am with child," she said, watching his face carefully. Vance went very still, his fork halfway to his mouth. Then a smile spread across his face, so wide and joyful that Olivia felt her own eyes fill with tears. "Truly?" he asked. "Truly?" He was up and around the table in an instant, pulling her into his arms and kissing her thoroughly. "We are going to have a baby," he said wonderingly. "You and me, Olivia, a baby." "Are you happy?" Olivia asked, though the answer was obvious. Happy does not begin to cover it. I am blessed. We are blessed. Winter came to the mountains, bringing snow that piled high around the cabin. Vance had prepared well, with plenty of firewood and food stores, and Olivia found the isolation peaceful rather than frightening. She was snowed in with the man she loved, growing his child, and she had never felt more content. Vance was even more protective than usual, insisting she rest often, bringing her tea and making sure she ate well. He talked to her growing belly at night, telling their baby about the mountains and the animals and how loved it would be. "What do you hope for?" Olivia asked one night. "A boy or a girl?" "Healthy," Vance said immediately. "That is all I care about. Though if it is a girl, I hope she has your eyes, and if it is a boy, I hope he has your kind heart." "And your strength," Olivia said, placing his hand on her belly where the baby was moving. "Feel that?" Vance's eyes widened as the baby kicked against his palm. "That is our child," he whispered, awed. Spring arrived with a rush of snowmelt and wildflowers. Olivia was large now, moving carefully, and Vance barely left her side. He brought in a midwife from Skidoo, Mrs. Patterson from the boarding house, who agreed to stay at the cabin as Olivia's due date approached. "Your man is terrified," Mrs. Patterson told Olivia with a laugh. "I have never seen a father to be so nervous." "He is very protective," Olivia said fondly, "and clearly in love. The way he looks at you, my dear, it is something special." Olivia went into labor on a warm May morning in 1879. The pain started slow, then built in intensity. Mrs. Patterson was calm and efficient, and Vance was beside himself with worry until Olivia snapped at him to either be useful or leave. He stayed, holding her hand, letting her squeeze until his bones creaked, murmuring words of love and encouragement. And when their baby finally arrived, squalling and healthy, Vance wept openly. "It is a boy," Mrs. Patterson announced, placing the cleaned and wrapped infant in Olivia's arms. Olivia looked down at her son, at his tiny perfect features and his wisp of dark hair, and felt her heart expand in ways she had not known were possible. "Hello, little one," she whispered. Vance leaned over them, his large finger gently stroking the baby's cheek. "He is perfect. You are perfect." "Thank you, Olivia. Thank you for giving me a family." They named him Nathaniel after Vance's father, and he became the center of their world. Vance was a doting father, constantly holding his son, talking to him, showing him the mountains and the sky and the animals. Olivia would often find them in the rocking chair Vance had built, the massive man cradling the tiny baby, singing old songs in his deep voice. "You are going to spoil him," Olivia teased one evening. "That is my right as his father," Vance said without apology. "Besides, I want him to always know he is loved. I want him to grow up secure and happy the way every child should." Olivia understood. Vance wanted to give their son what neither of them had truly had, a childhood full of love and safety, and she wanted the same. Life settled into a new rhythm with the baby. Olivia managed the household and cared for Nathaniel while Vance worked his trap lines and hunted. But he always made time to help with the baby, changing him, walking with him when he fussed, playing with him as he grew. Nathaniel was 6 months old when Olivia realized she was pregnant again. She told Vance as they lay in bed one night, Nathaniel asleep in his cradle nearby. "Already," Vance said, then laughed. "I suppose I should not be surprised. I can barely keep my hands off you. Are you happy about it?" Olivia asked. "Are you joking? I am thrilled. I love having a family with you. I would be happy to have a dozen children if you were willing." "Let us see how we manage with 2 first," Olivia said dryly, but she was smiling. Their second child, a daughter they named Grace, arrived the following spring. She had Olivia's gray eyes and her father's dark hair, and Vance fell in love all over again. "2 children," he said, holding Grace while Nathaniel played at his feet. "We are truly blessed, Olivia." "We are," Olivia agreed. The years passed in a blur of happiness. They added onto the cabin, giving the children their own room. Vance built furniture and toys, his large hands surprisingly skilled at delicate work. Olivia kept the household running, taught the children their letters and numbers, and worked the garden that grew larger each year. But beyond the practical aspects of their life, it was the love that defined their family. Vance never stopped courting Olivia, never stopped telling her she was beautiful, never stopped finding ways to make her smile. And Olivia gave him the home and family he had craved, the soft place to land after long days, the love that made everything worthwhile. When Nathaniel was 5 and Grace was 3, Olivia got pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was harder and Vance worried constantly. But Olivia was strong, stronger than she had ever been in her desperate days before Skidoo, and she carried the baby to term without major complications. Their third child was another boy, born in the late autumn of 1884. They named him Samuel, and he completed their family in a way none of them had known was missing. One evening, when Samuel was a few weeks old and sleeping peacefully, Olivia and Vance sat on the porch they had built, watching Nathaniel and Grace play in the last light of day. The mountains rose around them, purple and gold in the sunset, and the air was cool and crisp. "Do you ever regret it?" Vance asked suddenly. "Marrying me, living up here so isolated, working so hard." Olivia looked at him in surprise. "Never, not for a single moment. Do you regret asking me? Not even a little. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." He took her hand, the same hand that wore his mother's ring. "I just want to make sure you are happy, that you feel loved." "I feel loved every single day," Olivia said firmly. "You make me feel beautiful every single day, Vance. Not just with words, though I treasure those, but with actions. The way you look at me, the little things you do, the way you treat me and our children. You gave me a life I never imagined I could have. You gave me a home and a family and love. How could I ever regret that?" Vance pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "I love you, Olivia Summers. More now than even the day we married, if that is possible." "It is possible," Olivia said, "because I love you more now, too." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their children play, the baby sleeping inside, the mountain evening settling around them. Olivia thought back to the desperate, frightened woman who had stepped off the stage in Skidoo 7 years ago, with nothing but a carpet bag and $4. That woman had never owned anything beautiful, had never believed she was worthy of beauty or love. But that woman was gone, transformed by love and kindness into someone new, into Olivia Summers, wife and mother, who knew her own worth and beauty because her husband reminded her every day, who owned not just beautiful things but a beautiful life. She had never owned anything beautiful before Vance, but he had made her feel beautiful every single day, and in doing so, he had given her the most precious gift of all, the knowledge that she deserved love, deserved happiness, deserved a life full of beauty. And she had it, here in this cabin on the mountainside with the man who loved her and the family they had built together. It was more than enough. It was everything. As the years continued to pass, the Summers family thrived. Nathaniel grew into a strong, kind boy who followed his father on trap lines and learned the ways of the mountains. Grace was bright and curious, always asking questions and helping her mother in the garden and kitchen. Samuel, the baby, was cheerful and affectionate, toddling after his older siblings with determined steps. The cabin that had once seemed spacious now felt full of life and noise and love. There were toys scattered on the floor, children's laughter echoing off the walls, and the constant bustle of family life. Olivia sometimes felt exhausted by the end of the day, but it was a good exhaustion, the tiredness that came from a life well lived and work that mattered. Vance continued to trap and hunt, providing well for his family. His reputation had grown over the years, and miners and townspeople in Skidoo knew him as an honest man who always delivered quality pelts and meat. He made enough to buy extras for the family, little luxuries that Olivia still marveled at. Books for the children, fabric for new dresses, good tools that lasted. But more important than the material provision was the emotional stability Vance provided. He was a rock for his family, steady and strong, and his children adored him. Every evening, no matter how tired he spent time with each child, listening to their stories, teaching them skills, playing games, and giving hugs freely. And every night after the children were in bed, he and Olivia would sit together, talking about their day, making plans, or simply enjoying each other's presence. He never stopped courting her, never stopped finding ways to show his love. A flower on her pillow, a compliment whispered in her ear, a gentle touch as he passed her in the cabin. All these small gestures added up to a constant reassurance that she was loved. One summer day, when Nathaniel was 8, Grace was 6, and Samuel was 3, the family took a trip down to Skidoo for supplies. It was a special occasion because all 5 of them went together, the children excited about the adventure. As they walked through town, Olivia noticed people watching them. Some smiled and nodded, recognizing Vance and his family, but Olivia caught snippets of whispered conversation. "That is Vance Summers and his wife, the housekeeper he married. She was nothing when she arrived here. Now look at her. He must truly love her. The way he looks at her, it is like she is the only woman in the world." Olivia felt Vance's hand tighten on hers. He had heard the whispers too. "Does it bother you?" she asked quietly. "That people talk about how we met." Vance stopped walking and turned to face her, right there in the middle of the street. He cupped her face in his hands, oblivious to the watching townspeople. "Let them talk," he said firmly. "You were never nothing, Olivia. You were a woman in need of help, and I was blessed to be the one who could offer it. But you brought as much to me as I brought to you. You gave me a home, a family, a reason to come down from the mountain. You made my life complete. So no, it does not bother me. I am proud to have you as my wife. I am proud of the family we built, and anyone who suggests otherwise can answer to me." He kissed her then, a thorough kiss that left no doubt about his feelings, and Olivia heard Grace giggle and Nathaniel groan in embarrassment. When Vance pulled back, he was grinning. "Let that give them something to talk about," he said, and Olivia laughed. At the general store, the proprietor greeted them warmly. "Vance, Mrs. Summers, good to see you, and these must be your young ones. My, how they have grown." The children were each given a peppermint stick, a treat that had them beaming with joy. While Vance handled the supply list, Olivia wandered the store with the children, looking at the various goods on display. Her eye caught on a shelf of ribbons, beautiful silk ribbons in every color. She reached out to touch a blue one, running the smooth fabric through her fingers. "You like that one?" Vance's voice came from behind her. "It is lovely," Olivia said, "but we do not need it. Maybe I want to buy it for you anyway." Vance took the ribbon from her and added it to their purchases. "Blue like your dress, the one I bought you when you first came to the cabin. You still have that dress, don't you? Of course. I will never get rid of it. It was the first beautiful thing I ever owned." "Not true," Vance said softly. "You owned beauty before that. You just did not recognize it. You owned courage, strength, kindness, and hope. Those are beautiful things, Olivia." She felt tears prick her eyes. "How do you always know exactly what to say?" "Because I love you and I pay attention." On the way back to the cabin, with the children tired and quiet, Vance and Olivia walked side by side, the mule loaded with supplies trailing behind them. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "You ever think about the future?" Olivia asked. "About what will happen when the children are grown?" "Sometimes," Vance admitted. "I think about Nathaniel taking over the trap lines if he wants, or maybe he will want to do something else. I think about Grace getting married someday, though that thought makes my chest hurt." And Samuel, he is still so young, who knows what he will become. And us? What about us when we are old? Vance smiled. I think about that a lot, actually. I picture us sitting on that porch, gray and wrinkled, watching grandchildren play. I picture us still holding hands, still talking every night, still in love. That is my dream, Olivia, to grow old with you, to live a long life together, and to never stop appreciating what we have. That is my dream too, Olivia said. Exactly that. When they reached the cabin and got the children settled for the night, Vance tied the blue ribbon in Olivia's hair. There, he said, standing back to admire his work. Beautiful. It is just a ribbon, Olivia protested, but she was smiling. It is not about the ribbon. It is about what it represents. It represents me wanting to give you beautiful things, wanting to adorn you the way you deserve. But Olivia, you know that you make the ribbon beautiful, not the other way around, right? You are impossible, Olivia said, but she pulled him down for a kiss. The seasons turned, one year flowing into the next. The children grew and changed, developing their own personalities and interests. Nathaniel became serious and responsible, Grace remained curious and talkative, and Samuel was the peacemaker, always trying to keep everyone happy. Olivia taught them reading, writing, and arithmetic using books Vance brought from town. She taught them about kindness, about treating others with respect, about the value of hard work. But most importantly, she and Vance taught them about love through their example. The children never doubted that their parents loved each other. It was evident in every interaction, every glance, every touch. And they never doubted that they themselves were loved, because Vance and Olivia made sure of it every single day. When Nathaniel was 12, he asked his father about how he and Olivia had met. They were out checking trap lines together, and the boy had been unusually quiet. Your mother came to Skidoo with nothing, Vance said honestly. She was alone and afraid, and she needed help. I offered her a job, she accepted, and we fell in love. Simple as that. But why did you offer her a job? You did not know her. Because she needed help, and I was in a position to give it. That is reason enough, son. When you see someone in need and you can help, you do. You do not ask what is in it for you, you just help. And you fell in love just like that, Vance laughed. Not quite that fast, but yes, I fell in love with your mother quickly. She was kind and hardworking and brave, and she made me want to be a better man, still does every day. Do you think I will find someone like that someday? I hope you do. I hope you find someone who makes you want to be your best self, someone you respect and admire, someone who loves you for who you are. And when you find that person, Nathaniel, you hold on tight and you never take them for granted. You tell them every day that you love them. You show them through your actions. That is how you build a life together. Nathaniel nodded, absorbing his father's words. You really love Ma, don't you? More than anything in this world except you children. Your mother saved me, son, in ways I cannot fully explain. And I try to honor that gift every day by being the husband and father she deserves. These conversations happened often as the children grew older, questions about love and marriage and family. Vance and Olivia answered honestly, age-appropriately, always emphasizing respect, commitment, and genuine affection. When Grace was 10, she asked her mother about beauty. They were working in the garden together, harvesting vegetables in the late summer sun. Ma, do you think I am pretty? Olivia looked at her daughter, at her bright eyes and sun-freckled nose, and felt her heart squeeze. I think you are beautiful, inside and out. But more importantly, do you feel beautiful? Grace considered this. Sometimes. But Sarah Miller in town said I was plain. Olivia bit back an angry response about thoughtless children and instead said, Beauty is not just about how you look, Grace. It is about how you carry yourself, how you treat others, how you move through the world. Your father taught me that. When I met him, I thought I was ugly and worthless, but he made me see that I was beautiful in ways that had nothing to do with my face or figure. And that internal beauty, that confidence and kindness, it shows on the outside too. So you do not think I am plain. I think you are extraordinary. But what matters is what you think. Do not let anyone else define your worth, Grace. Not Sarah Miller, not any boy who comes along later, no one. You define your own worth and you make sure anyone in your life respects that. Grace hugged her mother tightly. Thank you, Ma. Always, sweetheart. Always. When Olivia told Vance about the conversation that night, he was quiet for a moment, then said, I will talk to her too. I want all our children to know their worth, but especially Grace. The world can be cruel to women. I want her to have the armor of self-confidence. The next day, Vance took Grace on a walk up the mountain. When they came back hours later, Grace was glowing. Pa told me I was beautiful, she told Olivia. He said I had your eyes and his determination, and that any person would be lucky to know me. He said I should never settle for anyone who does not treat me like I am precious. Olivia met Vance's eyes over their daughter's head and mouthed, Thank you. He just winked. Time continued its relentless march. Samuel grew from a toddler to a young boy, full of energy and mischief. The cabin echoed with the sounds of childhood, arguments and laughter, tears and celebrations. Olivia sometimes felt overwhelmed by the chaos, but Vance was always there to help, to take the children outside when she needed quiet, to handle the bedtime routine when she was exhausted, to simply hold her and remind her that she was doing a good job. I do not know how you do it, Olivia said one night after a particularly trying day where Samuel had broken a window with a badly thrown ball and Grace had gotten into a fight with Nathaniel over a book. Do what? Vance asked, stroking her hair as they lay in bed. Stay so calm. I was yelling today. I lost my temper. You are human, Olivia. You are allowed to lose your temper occasionally. The children know you love them. That is what matters. Do they know I am doing my best? They know. And when they are grown, they will look back and realize how lucky they were to have you as their mother. They will remember the love, not the occasional raised voice. Trust me. Olivia turned to face him in the darkness. How did I get so lucky to have you? I am the lucky one. Never doubt that. They made love then, slowly and tenderly, reaffirming their connection and their love. It was different now than in the early days of their marriage, not less passionate but more comfortable, a well-known dance that never grew old. Afterward, as they lay tangled together, Olivia whispered, You still make me feel beautiful every single day, you know. Even after 3 children and all these years, I still feel precious when you look at me. Good, Vance said fiercely. That will never change, Olivia. When we are 90 years old and cannot walk without canes, I will still tell you that you are beautiful, because you will be, to me, always. The years brought changes. Mining in Skidoo began to decline as the easily accessible gold played out. Some families moved away, seeking opportunities elsewhere. But Vance's business remained steady because he provided necessities, meat and furs, that people always needed. When Nathaniel turned 16 in 1895, he officially began working the trap lines with his father. He was tall and strong, taking after Vance, and he had a natural affinity for the mountain life. Vance was proud of his son and said so often. Grace, at 14, was becoming a young woman. She helped Olivia with the household and the younger children, but she also had dreams of becoming a teacher. She devoured every book they could get her and talked about maybe going to the coast someday to get proper training. If that is what you want, we will make it happen, Vance assured her. Your mother and I want you to follow your dreams, Grace. Samuel, at 12, was still deciding what he wanted. He liked working with his hands, liked building things, and Vance encouraged this by teaching him carpentry and other skills. Olivia watched her children growing up with mixed emotions. She was proud of the people they were becoming, but she also felt the bittersweetness of time passing too quickly. She said as much to Vance one evening. "I know," he said. "It goes too fast. But Olivia, look at what we built. 3 amazing children who are kind and strong and full of potential. We did that. You and me. That is something to celebrate. I know. I just wish I could freeze time sometimes, keep them young a little longer. But then we would miss out on who they become. We would miss grandchildren someday. We would miss the next chapters of our own story. Time has to move forward, love. Our job is to appreciate each moment as it comes." He was right, as he so often was. Olivia tried to live in the moment, to appreciate the family dinners and the evening conversations and the everyday moments that made up a life. When Olivia was 42 and Vance was 45, they celebrated their 17th wedding anniversary. The children, now young adults and not so young, helped Vance plan a surprise party. They cleaned the cabin, cooked a feast, and decorated with wildflowers. When Olivia came back from town where she had been visiting Mrs. Patterson, she walked into a cabin full of love and celebration. "Happy anniversary, Ma," the children chorused. Olivia burst into tears, overwhelmed by emotion. Vance pulled her into his arms, holding her close. 17 years, he said. Best 17 years of my life, and I am looking forward to at least 50 more. They ate and laughed and told stories about the years gone by. The children shared their favorite memories, and Olivia realized that they remembered the love, just as Vance had predicted. They remembered family dinners and holidays, their father's patient teaching and their mother's fierce protectiveness, the laughter and the security of being loved. Later, after the children had gone to bed, Vance gave Olivia her anniversary gift. It was a wooden box, beautifully carved, and when she opened it, she found it full of small items. Dried flowers from over the years, ribbons he had bought her, small stones and shells they had found on walks, even the original blue ribbon from that trip to town years ago. "I have been collecting memories," Vance said. "Every beautiful moment we shared, I tried to keep something from it. I wanted you to have them all, a reminder of our life together." Olivia could barely see through her tears. "This is the most thoughtful gift anyone has ever given me." "You deserve thoughtful. You deserve beauty and love and appreciation every single day. That has not changed, Olivia. It never will." They made love that night with the passion of newlyweds and the comfort of long familiarity, and Olivia fell asleep in her husband's arms feeling more blessed than she had ever imagined possible. The children began to leave home gradually. Grace went to San Francisco to attend normal school and become a teacher. It was hard to let her go, but Vance and Olivia were proud of her courage and determination. She wrote long letters home, full of descriptions of city life and her studies, and she always ended with declarations of love and gratitude for her parents. Nathaniel continued working with Vance, and when he was 22, he met a young woman from a neighboring mining camp. Her name was Elizabeth, and she was sweet and kind. And when Nathaniel brought her to meet his parents, Olivia saw the love in his eyes and knew this was serious. They were married a year later, and Vance built them a cabin nearby so they could start their own life while still being close to family. Watching Nathaniel with Elizabeth reminded Olivia of her early days with Vance, the awkward sweetness of new love, the joy of building a life together. "We did something right with him," Vance said as they watched the newlyweds head to their own cabin after dinner. "He treats her the way I taught him, with respect and love." "You taught all our children well," Olivia said. They know what real love looks like because they saw it every day growing up. Samuel, now 18, was considering joining his brother in the trapping business, or maybe trying his hand at carpentry in town. He was still deciding, and Vance told him there was no rush. "Take your time. Figure out what makes you happy," Vance advised. Life is too short to do work that does not fulfill you. One evening, as Olivia and Vance sat on their porch watching the sunset, Vance said, "We are getting older, you know. I saw some gray in your hair this morning." Olivia laughed. "You have been gray for years." "True, but it made me think." "We have lived a good life, haven't we? The best life," Olivia said firmly. "Better than I ever dreamed possible. Me too. And I want to make sure you know how much it has meant to me. How much you have meant to me. You took a rough mountain man and made him into a husband and father. You gave me a home and a family. You loved me when I probably did not deserve it." "You always deserved it," Olivia said. "You saved me, Vance. You gave me safety and love and a beautiful life. You made me feel beautiful when I thought I was worthless. That is a gift I can never repay. You repay it every day just by being you, by loving me and our children, by making this cabin a home. I love you, Olivia Summers. I have loved you since the day you stepped off that stage, soaking wet and scared, and I will love you until my last breath." "And I love you," Olivia said, reaching for his hand. "More than words can say." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell and stars began to appear. Inside the cabin, Samuel was reading by lamplight. Down the mountain path, Nathaniel and Elizabeth were starting their own married life. Across the country, Grace was pursuing her dreams. Their family had expanded and changed, but the core remained, the love that Vance and Olivia had built together, strong and enduring. The years continued to pass, bringing both joy and sorrow. Olivia's old friend Mrs. Patterson passed away peacefully in her sleep, and Olivia mourned the woman who had helped bring her children into the world. But there were happy times too. Grace came home to visit with a young man she was courting, a fellow teacher named William, and they were married the following year in Skidoo with the whole family present. Nathaniel and Elizabeth had a baby, a little girl they named Rose, and Vance cried the first time he held his granddaughter. "We are grandparents," he said to Olivia in wonder. "Look at this perfect little person. We helped make this possible." Samuel eventually decided to open a carpentry shop in Skidoo, and his business thrived. He had inherited his father's skill with his hands and his mother's eye for detail, and people came from miles around for his furniture. As Vance and Olivia entered their 50s, they found themselves alone in the cabin more often. The children were all grown and living their own lives, though they visited frequently. It was an adjustment, going from a house full of noise and activity to quiet evenings with just the two of them. But they discovered they liked it. They could take long walks without worrying about children getting into mischief. They could have leisurely conversations that spanned hours. They could make love in the middle of the day if they wanted. No risk of interruption. "This is nice," Olivia said one afternoon as they lay in bed, sunlight streaming through the window. "I love our children and grandchildren, but I also love having you to myself." "I was just thinking the same thing," Vance said, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "We should have another honeymoon period. What do you think?" "I think that sounds perfect." They traveled a bit, something they had never had time for when the children were young. They went to San Francisco to visit Grace and William, and Olivia marveled at the city with its grand buildings and bustling streets. But she was happy to return to the mountains, to their cabin, to the life they had built. When Olivia was 55, she took ill with a fever that had Vance terrified. He stayed by her bedside for 3 days, barely eating or sleeping, nursing her with a desperation that spoke to his deep fear of losing her. You cannot leave me, he said hoarsely as he bathed her fevered forehead. I need you, Olivia. I cannot do this life without you. Olivia, weak but conscious, squeezed his hand. I am not going anywhere. I promised you a long life together, remember? I intend to keep that promise. She recovered slowly, and Vance was even more attentive than usual during her convalescence. He brought her meals in bed, read to her, and refused to let her do any work until she was completely well. You are hovering, Olivia said, but she was smiling. I am taking care of my wife, Vance countered. That is my privilege and my pleasure. When she was finally back to full health, Vance took her on a long walk to their favorite meadow, the one where he had taken her so many times over the years. I realized something when you were sick, he said as they sat among the wildflowers. I realized that every day with you is a gift. I think I have always known that, but it really hit me. I cannot waste a single day forgetting to tell you that I love you, that you are beautiful, that you mean everything to me. You never forget, Olivia said gently. You tell me every single day, and I will continue to do so. But I also want to make sure you know that you made my life worth living, Olivia. Before you, I was just existing. After you, I had purpose and joy and love. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. And you are the best thing that ever happened to me, Olivia said. You took a scared, broken woman and made her whole. You made me believe I was worthy of love and beauty. You gave me a family and a home and a life beyond my wildest dreams. I am the lucky one, Vance. We are both lucky, Vance said, pulling her close. We found each other against all odds, and we built something beautiful together. They sat in the meadow until sunset, talking and reminiscing, and when they finally walked back to the cabin, hand in hand, Olivia felt a profound sense of gratitude for her life. The grandchildren kept coming. Rose was joined by siblings, and Grace and William had 3 children of their own. Samuel married a young woman from Skidoo named Margaret, and they started their own family. The cabin that had once been quiet now filled regularly with the sounds of visiting grandchildren, their laughter and questions and energy bringing new life to the old spaces. Vance was an attentive grandfather, just as he had been an attentive father. He carved toys, told stories, and took the grandchildren on gentle walks to see the mountains he loved. Olivia baked cookies and sewed clothes, and listened to their chatter with patient affection. We have a beautiful legacy, Vance said one evening after a particularly chaotic day with multiple grandchildren visiting. Look at all the love we created. It started with you and me, and now it has spread to all these children. That is something special, Olivia. It is, she agreed. And it all started because you were kind to a desperate stranger. Best decision I ever made. As they entered their 60s, Vance's hair was fully silver and his beard was white, making him look like a wise mountain sage. Olivia's hair had silvered too, and her face showed the lines of a life well lived. But when Vance looked at her, he still saw the young woman who had fallen into the creek. And when Olivia looked at Vance, she still saw the strong, kind man who had offered her safety. They moved slower now, their bodies not as resilient as they once were. Vance retired from the trap lines, teaching Nathaniel everything he knew and letting his son take over the business. Instead, he focused on projects around the cabin, on spending time with Olivia, on enjoying their remaining years together. They celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary surrounded by children, grandchildren, and friends from Skidoo. It was a joyous occasion, full of food and music and laughter. During the party, Grace gave a toast. To my parents, she said, raising her glass. They have shown all of us what true love looks like. They have taught us about commitment, respect, kindness, and partnership. Ma and Pa, thank you for loving each other so well and for loving us. You built a legacy of love that will outlast all of us." Everyone cheered, and Olivia found herself crying happy tears. Vance pulled her close and whispered in her ear, "40 years, and you still take my breath away. You are as beautiful to me now as you were the day we met. More beautiful, because now I know all the depths of your heart. And you are still the man who makes me feel beautiful every single day," Olivia whispered back. One autumn evening, when Olivia was 68 and Vance was 71, they sat on their porch wrapped in blankets, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and crimson. "You remember the first time we sat here together?" Vance asked. "I remember every moment we have shared," Olivia said. "But yes, I remember. I was pregnant with Nathaniel and you told me about your dreams for our future." "And did it turn out the way I hoped?" "Better," Olivia said. "So much better. We have had a beautiful life, Vance. No regrets." "Not a single one. Except maybe that time will eventually run out. Then we make the most of the time we have left," Olivia said firmly. "We love each other, we enjoy our family, and we appreciate every single day. That is all we can do." "That is exactly what we will do," Vance agreed. As the sun dipped below the horizon and stars began to appear, Vance took Olivia's hand, the same way he had thousands of times before. "I love you, Olivia Summers," he said. "I love you too, Vance Summers," she replied. And there, on the porch of the cabin they had shared for over 40 years, in the mountains that had witnessed their love story, they sat together in perfect contentment. She had never owned anything beautiful before meeting Vance, but he had made her feel beautiful every single day of their life together. And that gift, that constant reassurance of her worth and his love, had been the foundation of a beautiful life, a life rich with love and family and joy. They had built something extraordinary together, and as they sat under the stars, they knew that their love would endure beyond their lifetimes, living on in their children and grandchildren, a legacy of beauty and love that would never fade. The mountain man and the woman who thought she was worthless had found each other and created a love story for the ages. And every day, every single day, they had chosen each other again. That was the real beauty, not in possessions or appearances, but in the choice to love and be loved, fully and completely, from that first day in Skidoo until their last breath.